Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's a great start. Let's unmute this video.
Good. Good.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me, Cosmo? Yes,
Yeah, I
you
can hear you.
I can't hear you though.
No.
I just turn up the TV volume.
Making loud.
Are you there, Cosmo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yeah. That's coming out of the wrong thing. It's coming out of the computer instead of the audio on the Mac. Okay, we'll sort that out later. If you want to talk, you'll have to make some visual indication because you're coming out of the Mac instead of the TV. Okay, cool, that's good. All right, today we're going to get back into Old Testament. We are going to race through, finish off Judges. So let's quickly go through, we talked about Judges last week. Let's quickly remember who were some of the judges. Deborah, tell me something.
Samson.
Deborah, Samson, who else? Ehud, yeah. Tell me something special about Deborah.
She was a woman.
She was a woman. What did she do?
Rallied the army.
Rallied the army. Yes, very good. Okay, Ehud, what was cool about him?
Assassin.
He was an assassin, a left-handed assassin, that's right. Yeah. Who else have we got? Samson?
Long hair.
Long hair. He did have long. Why did he have long hair?
Because it was part of the
Nazarite vow. She's not supposed to cut his hair because he's dedicated wholly to God. That's right. And he didn't really carry that through very well. I'm very dark. That's okay. Okay, anyone else? Any more judges?
There was one that started with J.
J. Yeah, there probably was one that started with J.
Jephthah.
Jephthah.
Yeah.
Yes. What was special about? He's the one that.
The one that was they cast him out.
Then he was the outcast from the family. He was the little sort of gang leader of a gang of rebels. They called him back, and chaos in general around his life. He's the one that sacrificed his daughter. You know, when he won the battle, that was pretty bad. So my comment was going to be: are the judges role models for us to follow? Yes. Yes and no, that's right. We have to realise that there's aspects to the judges that we want to follow, but not everything the judges did was smart. We don't want to copy all of Samson's attributes.
No.
Obviously, we get that, right? So we have to actually use our discernment and our smarts to figure out what's the thing that they're wanting to show us in the story. Are they wanting to show us something to follow? Or maybe they're showing us something that we shouldn't follow. They're showing us some things that were going wrong. The book of Judges ends pretty rough. We talked about that, that cycle of chaos. Follow God, turn away from, get blessed, turn away from God, call out to God for help again. Story of my life, right? Is that how many people live their lives like that? Okay, then we get to, these some more of the judges. We didn't talk about Gideon, he was another big one. The main point of Gideon's story, it's not his strength. God kept making his army smaller and smaller. And he still won. Good stuff. So yeah, just good things in all those stories. Here's that list. And the end of the book of Judges. This is probably one of the key verses. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. And the place pretty much deteriorated into chaos and civil war. As well as fighting the enemies around them, they're fighting each other. Who knows the story about, I heard a guy preach on it once and he called his sermon 10 shekels in a shirt. And the story roughly goes, there's a Levite from Bethlehem who's sort of bored, and so he goes somewhere else looking for a ministry. And there's this guy who's obviously quite a rich guy, and he says, oh, you come to live in my house, you can be my priest. And so he comes and he sets up, and they have like their own little thing going on, which is obviously not linked in with the tabernacle where God is, and they've got their own thing going on, their own idols and stuff like this happening. And he's the priest, so it's a mixture of idolatry and Levites and stuff. And he's the priest at his house, and this is all good. He thinks God will bless me now because I've got my own priest. And then the tribe of one of the tribes, which is looking for somewhere to live, tribe of Dan, comes along and they decide they'll steal this priest, this Levite, out of this guy's house so he can come with them and help them win their battles. So they steal him and they go off to a war. They find this other people living in the valley and they think, we'll live here. They go and they take this priest and the guy says, hey, you can't take him, he's my priest. And they say, basically it's a standoff. We've got 600 men ready to go to war. There's like 20 of you. Bring it on. And so obviously he backs off. The priest goes off with this guy now and they win the fight, do their thing. Someone comes to visit. There's a story of someone who's going on a journey. He stops over at someone's house, at this guy's house, and the men turn up. They want to take the guy and have sex with him. And he says no, and he gets his concubine and she gets shoved out the door. She gets raped and killed. And it's sounding pretty rough. Now, what does that story sound like to you? If you're listening to that story, it should ring a bell. It sounds exactly like Sodom and Gomorrah, except no angel turned up and made them all go blind and go away. But without that, this is exactly the same story repeated. And now this is happening not in Sodom and Gomorrah, but it's happening in Israel. Obviously, things are very, very bad. And then this is so then there's a civil war, and everyone says, well, the tribe of Benjamin that did this is really bad. So all of the other 11 tribes gather together to go to war against them, and they get thrashed a little bit by Benjamin for a while. About the third or fourth time they attack, they win, and Benjamin is severely defeated. Then they're all like, oh, now we're in trouble. One of the 12 tribes of Israel is going to disappear. What are we going to do? No, because we've all made a vow that we will never give our daughters as wives to the Israelites, to the Benjamites, because they're so evil. And what are we going to do? Benjamin will die out, and that'll be a bad thing. So they have this deal where during the festival, the Benjamites can steal the woman as they go dancing down the road as part of some festival. And we won't do anything about it because then we haven't given them, so we haven't broken our vow, but they'll still get wives and it'll all sort of work out. It's total chaos, obviously. And this is pretty much where the book of Judges ends. And the thing is, in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit. It's obviously, part of the point of that is pointing us to the fact that the way that's not working, that way of running the country is obviously not working. The people aren't following God at all well. Internally and externally, they're in great chaos. And so they need something else. They need to change something. So some of the main points in Judges, the people that were used by God were empowered by the Holy Spirit and not by their own strength. Again and again and again, we'll see that. We're supposed to get that and realize that it's not our own strength, but it's when God puts a spirit on us that stuff happens. God uses weak and imperfect people. God is faithful despite repeated unfaithfulness. God is still merciful and faithful. And those are the things that we see. And we get this thing, okay, we need some sort of structured leadership because the country is falling apart. Those are probably the main things that we're supposed to get about it. And of course, because we're New Testament people, we know Jesus is the judge, the ultimate judge who rescues us. That cycle of unfaithfulness and calling out to God, that's our own, that's everyone's life. But we're supposed to, when we receive the Holy Spirit, we're supposed to break out of that cycle. Everyone of us, not just a couple of judges, but everyone receives the Spirit. Everyone is empowered for character and faithfulness as well as great exploits. This is the New Testament look back on the book of Judges. And so we want to realize that there's some differences between us and them because of those main points. And so there's some things in Judges we want to role model on, and there's some things we want to avoid, some things we want to be aware of. What I really want to hit on today, we want to start on the book of Ruth. Ruth is a good story. One of the benefits of Ruth is that it's a close-up on 2 or 3 people rather than Judges is over the whole nation, and Ruth is a zoom in on 2 people. Okay, and we get to see a lot of personal life stuff. We get a good insight into what it was like to be an Israelite living in the time. Now, the book of Ruth happens in the same time as the book of Judges. We know that because in Judges chapter 1, verse 1, in Ruth chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the time when the judges ruled, ta-da, there we know there's our context. So it's the same story, and it's pretty much the opposite of the book of Judges because it's zeroed in on one person who actually lives, or the people in the story live godly lives, and they're in obedience to the law, and they're doing things right, and God is blessing and stuff like that, which is the opposite of what we've seen in the book of Judges. So it's an interesting contrast. We want to look through it. We want to see what is this telling us and what are some of the things we should get out of the story? We're going to do this in a bit of detail. First, let's review our timeline. Let's start with Helen. Tell me something about, what do we mean when we say creation? Tell me something from creation story that's important in our understanding of Old Testament.
God created all things, man and creation.
Yep.
And also the fall.
The fall of man, yes, that's important. Anything else out of creation that matters?
Creation that we're created in God's image.
Yes, very important. Created in God's image. That's where we come from. Okay, Gloria, next one. Abraham. What's important about Abraham?
Covenant that God made his descendants as many as the stars.
God made a covenant with Abraham, as many as the stars. That's right. Great promise, great covenant. What other covenants have we skipped over? In our
Noah.
Noah, there's a covenant with Noah that sits in here.
And also, I guess, Adam.
Adam and Eve, you know, the whole covenant with humanity at the very start, be fruitful and fill the earth and all that sort of thing. Covenants are happening here. Okay, Egypt, what's that about? Josh? Egypt. On our timeline, what is Egypt? What do we need to remember? Yeah.
That is the foreign slavery.
That's right. The people of Israel are in slavery. Yes, very good. Exodus, Lauren.
Self-explanatory.
What's the main point?
They got delivered from slavery.
Yes.
They went out to the wilderness.
Yep.
And then they forgot about everything and complained.
They contained in winter. Yeah.
And yes. And
Okay.
so they had to come back to a right place and then Sinai.
Okay, so Sinai covenant, what is that?
10 Commandments.
10 Commandments and all the rest of Leviticus and Deuteronomy and all that sort of stuff, yes. Why did they end up in the wilderness? Josh?
Because they got to the promised land and the scouts were like, oh, they're too tall.
That's it.
And they ran away.
Fear and disobedience, out they go into the wilderness. Woody, that's right. Whole generation lost it. That's pretty rough. Okay, and then we have Judges. Right, that's where we're up to. A promised land. So Joshua took them in, and then we're good to go. Okay, Ruth. What we're going to do for the book of Ruth. So here's a overview of the book. But I'm going to read the whole book. Let's split into two teams. That's pretty easy. We always like to have competition, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
So we've got a team that works really good. Okay. We're going to read the book of Ruth. Just to make it interesting. Pins that work. This is your pen. Your team's pen. This is your team's pen. Okay, now what you have to do, as we read the book of Ruth, when you see something, when we come across something that highlights their culture, their difference, the differences between us and them, right? You have to write it on the whiteboard. Okay. So as I read through the book of Ruth.
So highlights the difference.
So something that's a notable cultural context thing that we need to remember when we study the scripture. We need to identify the differences between our situation and their situation, our culture, our geography, everything in them. So things that where there's a gap between us and them that we need to find out about that will help us understand the story. We want to note those on here. So I'll just start reading. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And a man from Bethlehem in Judah, Josh wants to write something. Famine, very good.
Is that the wrong?
That's not
No,
really
it's
cultural.
not.
Oh, okay.
How many of us have lived through a famine?
COVID-19.
A plague. Okay, so we've observed a plague hit the rest of the world and almost come here. None of us have lived through a famine, right? So therefore, we don't know what the story's about, and we have to do some research. What is it like to be in a famine? Okay, what no one said was, so this is Judges. How many of us have lived under the rule of Judges? None of us have done that either. Right? So none of us understand Judges. Okay, that's something different. Okay. A man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Here comes Helen. All right, she's getting it now. What do you want to write down? Bethlehem. Yeah. Very good. A man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Okay, so none of us have lived in Bethlehem in Judah. Okay, Moab as well, right?
No!
That's good. Now, what do we know? So we understand. Why have they gone to live in Moab?
Because of the famine.
Because of famine, that's right. So understanding they're fleeing starvation, going to live in another country. What do we know about Moab? What do we know about Moab? Moab's a Gentile country, right? Okay, they don't worship the Lord, they worship idols. When the Bible says Bethlehem in Judah, what do we do about place names in the Bible? Place names mean things, right? So we want to have our radars up. Bethlehem means house of bread, right? So Beth, house. And whenever you see Bethel, house of God, right? Al's God, Beth. So Beth means bread. Now, so obviously, because we are scholars, we understand that this book is all about there was no bread in the house of bread. Okay, there's a famine in the house of bread. Something is not, okay, it means a whole lot more to the people reading it that understand all these things than us. We just think it's something Bethlehem. We know that's where Jesus comes from. Jesus is going to be born there, we get that, but okay, here we go. He went to live, the man's name was Elimelech, his wife named Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. They went to Moab and lived there. I'm going to write Ephrathite up here. What's an Ephrathite? Because no one knows what that is. That's why we should have written it on. What's it? He's talking about their clan, the clan that he's descended from in Judah. So Judah is the tribe, okay, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, one of the sons of Jacob. Then one of the leading citizens of that tribe is Ephrath. That's the clan, that's the area they come from. That sort of helps. Now, how many of us, when we introduce ourselves, say, hello, I'm Derek, I'm from South Auckland in New Zealand, descended from George and Norma. Anyone say that? No, we don't do that, right? But ancient Israel, that's how you identify and introduce yourself, right? You're identified by where you come from, where your inheritance land spot is, and who your descendants, who your ancestors are. That's who you are. And of course, non-Western cultures still do that, right? Okay, so Indigenous Australians will talk about their place where they come from. That's who they are and who their ancestors are. Well, that's strong and still in their worldview. Okay, now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with the 2 sons. They married a Moabite woman, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. What's going on?
Wait,
What's
what?
going on?
I think she's just telling me. All of that is still relatable. Well, not to me, but
Okay.
maybe.
Okay.
Oh, sons.
Okay. The problem that should have been written down here, right? Married Moabite woman. What does that mean?
So they're marrying outside of the children.
Are they supposed to do that?
No.
No, you're not supposed to do that. Right. Moabite wives. You're not supposed to do that. Okay, you're supposed to marry Israelites. You're supposed to. Okay. Why aren't you supposed to marry a Moabite woman?
They're Gentiles.
And what will happen if you marry a Moabite woman?
You can take from their idols.
You'll start worshipping idols and stuff like that. So the whole thing through the Deuteronomy and everything, don't marry them because they'll lead you into idolatry. Yes, okay.
No, you're still saying that.
After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, Naomi and her daughter-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place. Let me write it down.
I
We're writing
remember.
things.
I don't know.
End of famine, yeah.
And daughters-in-law.
Daughters-in-law, Dills.
Wait. That's
Why did you
relatable.
write that down?
Why did you write?
Because, okay, so how many of their daughters-in-law, like if my husband died, I'm not going to go and live with my in-laws, I would go and live back with my parents.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay, well played.
It's
Yeah,
literally being, like.
But what if you didn't have parents? Like your
Okay,
parents passed away.
okay.
But still, just think, they're giving up everything that they've ever known to leave a land that they've known, their friends, where they've grown
Yeah.
up, their
But like,
heritage,
isn't that
to go
similar?
and live in a completely different land, different culture, different everything.
So yes, Helen's correct. It's unusual for daughters-in-law to go with their mother. What's supposed to happen? If your husband dies, you're supposed to go back to your father's house, and he's supposed to find you a new husband. That's what's supposed to happen. So if you remember back in Genesis, Judah, his sons married whatever her name was, that deaf woman, okay, and
Yeah.
Tamar,
Oh,
Tamar, right? And she dies.
Yeah.
Goes back. She lived with him. So then he gave her the next son. So the next husband had to marry her. Next brother had to marry her, had died. The whole thing is normally you go back to your father's house. And she went back to her father-in-law's house, actually. That's interesting. But they were what it was. But yes, daughter-in-law thing, it is unusual to go with a foreign country, foreign culture, all of that sort of stuff. Okay, where are we up to? Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, go back each of you to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown to your dead and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them and they wept aloud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Other sons. What is that all about?
legacy.
What is it all about? Am I too old? I am too old to have another son who could become your husband. So the tradition is
They marry the other.
you marry if your husband dies, you marry his brother. His brother's job.
Things contradict each other.
Hmm?
You just
Yes.
you just say
Yes.
if your husband dies, you go back to your family, but then you're saying if your husband dies, you marry.
If he's got a brother,
So if there's a brother.
if he has a brother, his brother is
If
supposed
not,
to take
go
you.
to- yeah.
But if he hasn't got a brother, then you're out on your own. Yeah, yes. So that's what you're saying. I haven't got any sons. I'm old. I haven't got any sons. It's because 10 years have gone by.
Do you want to take over for him?
Not really.
So what you can tag at chapter 2. You can tag. How about that? That'd be
And
fun.
we get all of Derek's because they're in the same colour.
Oh, that's shocking. Okay, where are we up to? Am I going to have any sons that can return home, my daughters? I'm too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me. I'm just going to stop right there. Why am I stopping? Why am I stopping? Oh, the Lord's hand has gone against me? Yeah, that's not why I stopped, but okay.
Wait, what? Why is that something you don't understand today?
Okay, why did you write that down? Just, I can ask you, yeah?
I guess because in some ways we do experience some of it as well, but a lot of times it's a very cultural thing, like to be saying that kind of thing.
It's a cultural thing to say that anything good or bad that happens to me is God's fault. I guess. Yes, sort of. Okay, I paused because there's a little Z in my Bible above bitter. God has made my life very bitter, right? Why is there a thing above bitter? Because Naomi means pleasant, right? And what does she say next? She says, she calls herself Mary. She changed her name to bitter. And there's a word play and there's a thing. Names mean something. So names mean something. Again, people's names mean something in Old Testament. And if they all expect them to mean things, and they change their names when their circumstances change, etc. At this they wept again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people. Go back and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you from me. Can write something down. And obviously, she should write something down here. This is obviously a moment Something's happening in this book right now. Your people will be my people. Like Helen said, your God will be my God. This is, if you were New Testament, this is her conversion moment, right? This is her salvation moment where she's abandoned her life of idolatry, her whole way of living, and she's left the Gentile world to become an Israelite and taken on God. I'll have your God, I'll have your people, I'll completely abandon everything of my own to be joined to you. Then, when Naomi realized Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the woman exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." Yes, we've already had this.
It's like that wasn't in the force.
I've already talked about it, but it wasn't there. Okay, we've already talked about it. People changing their name to reflect their life circumstance, their names meaning something. Paul and Saul, right? You will be called Simon, you will be called Peter. This is a Bible thing. Abraham, again and again and again. Okay, it's a thing, confessing over their lives what is happening. Or sometimes it's what is happening to me right now. Sometimes it's what I'm expecting. Okay, if you happen to be the child of a prophet, you might get called swift to the plunder. So Isaiah called one of his children, I think it was Isaiah, swift to the plunder and quick to the spoil was the name of his son. Prophesying that the Assyrians were going to come in, or Babylonians were going to come and plunder Jerusalem. That's a great name to have, right? Too bad for you. Don't be the son of a prophet because you'll get a weird name. Okay, where are we up to? Don't call me my life. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Now note, everywhere in the book of Ruth, we're going to see again and again, Ruth the Moabitess. It's like a highlighter pen, just because we can't highlight things in Hebrew writing. Barley harvest, very good. How many of us have lived on a farm and harvested? Okay, so we don't get it. But barley harvest is a significant time in the annual calendar. Okay, so it's an important time. Okay, chapter 2, swap pens. Yeah. Okay, I had an idea. The prize for winning this competition is college buys you lunch. How about that? Is that a good idea? If you haven't got lunch, college will buy lunch for you. So that might be motivating you a bit. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side. Oh, the junk has come alive. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, what are you writing? Did I say kinsman? No. I never even said that.
That's what someone from back then was reading that. That's what they would think. They would be like, ooh.
Okay, yes, so, because I did say a relative on your husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing. That all means something, okay? How many people around us have relatives who are men of standing?
I do. In my, in my past, you go way back.
You wait, okay. In your
My mum was just telling me that when they've gone back to like one of the Queen of Scots, what's her name? Queen of Scots, and that's her, that her woman that looked after her was a really good friend of hers, and she gave her this really amazing necklace, and that was passed through the family, and then at some point the royal family demanded it back, so it's actually on display over there now.
And it used to be in your family's possession for
but we've got all
generations.
these like noble people in our past that we've gone back, and Dad reckons that he can now trace us back to Adam and Eve.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Seriously, he reckons he can go back. He said it gets a bit blurry in a certain point.
When the Vikings came,
But yeah, he's at the Vikings and he's in touch with people in Scandinavia trying to get a bit more history. So crazy.
That's cool, right?
Dad retired, he's got too much.
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. So a man was standing, his name was Boaz. I wonder what Boaz means. It's got to mean something. Right? I don't know what it means though, I can't find out. It doesn't say anywhere in the notes, I can't find the note. Never mind. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favour. What are we writing down? Woman working. What, didn't they do that? Don't they do that now?
Yeah, so did they?
Gleaning, yes. So, this is the thing we need to really get.
Stop taking them practical.
So, yes, woman working in fields, yes. Yeah, women work everywhere. They run the whole thing, right? Men go to war, women do the work. Right?
Okay.
So, yes, it's very normal. But it's not normal for us to have women working fields, but these days, we're getting back to that. Fine, right? Gleaning. Okay, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Exodus, Numbers, the law says, do not harvest all of your crop. Leave some for the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the alien. Okay, and so she's doing exactly, so what we see here is the new Old Testament law being put into practice in this little village, wherever it is in Bethlehem. They're actually doing it right. When Boaz, the rich man, harvests his field, the leftovers are left there for any poor people who don't have a farm, don't have any income, because remember, you don't have a farm, she's got no workers or anything, they can come and harvest for themselves the leftovers. And so she's doing that, she understands that's how it's supposed to work, and that's what she's doing. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz. As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you, they called back. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, whose young woman is that? The foreman replied, she is the Moabitess, who came from Moab with Naomi. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. Now, you've underlined that, George. Why have you underlined that in your Bible?
I don't rest.
Is there a reason?
Sorry.
Is there a reason you've underlined that verse in the Bible, in your Bible?
Yeah, well, she's doing the extra mile.
Extra hard work, right?
Yes,
Very
hard work,
diligent.
yeah.
Yes, not stacking around at all. Yes, very good. Good example. Okay, so Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field. And don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Okay. I need to turn the camera on. Just a minute. And you'll miss something really important. What did you all miss?
I don't know.
What did you all miss? What did Boaz say?
He's saying to stay with us and that.
My daughter.
My daughter, yeah.
Who is he talking to? The Moabitess.
Yes.
He's talking to the Moabitess, the deaf woman, right? Okay, whose husband has died and she's a foreigner, idol worshiper, blah, blah, blah. Boaz says, my daughter.
Turn of India.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like part of my welcoming her into his family. What is going on? Why is he saying my daughter?
He's accepting her as
Yeah,
part of
accept-
He's accepting her, welcoming her, right? Even though we've already had 4 times in the last half a chapter, Moabitess, Moabitess, Moabitess. He's saying, my daughter. Something's going on there.
He likes what he sees.
He likes what he sees. Something's going on there. We'll come back to that. Well, there's a couple of secrets happening in here that we might get to soon, but here we go. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. My daughter, don't glean here and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting. Follow along after the girls. I have told the men not to touch you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars that the men have filled. What's happening?
He's showing her favour.
Servants, very good. How many of us have servants? None of us, right, okay.
They're called children, that's why we have them.
Yes. And he wants to write down.
I don't really know how to put it into words, but just the whole roles that men and women had in the
Yes.
fields and on the
Yes,
farms.
Megan, we can write down gender roles if you like. There's definitely gender roles happening in the story, very well entrenched in ancient society. There's a couple more things here that are interesting. Water jars. No one said water jars. How many of us drink from water jars? This is not hydro friendly. Right? Okay. Okay. Someone has gone to the river because they don't have any water, filled up jars of water and brought it back. And my understanding from reading this is that the guys have done it, and that's for them because they do the hard work. Okay, and you want water, you get your own water, especially if you're a Moabitess and a woman and not even part of our team. But he said you can have yourself from the corporate bathrooms, right? You can help yourself. So that, and again, he's elevating her highly. I have told the men not to touch her.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
No, they're not doing.
Total protection.
Yeah.
What obviously, what she's doing is not a safe occupation. Obviously, there's a possibility that any woman who turns up on her own, working in a field, is open game for any man who doesn't have any manners, right? But he's given the order, that this one has got protection from me, so don't touch her. So obviously there's something going on which is very unusual. Okay, at this she bowed down with her face to the ground. She exclaimed, "Why have I found such favour in your eyes that you would notice me, a foreigner?" Bow down. Yes, obviously we don't do that now, but this is normal culture, right? Bowing down to the face of the ground, there's like roles and who's important and who's not important, honour and humility, all that sort of thing. Boaz replied, "I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people that you do not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge."
Blessing.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Blessing. That's right. He's declaring a blessing right now. Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wanting goodness for somebody else, which is against our culture because we're all out for ourselves.
Out for ourselves, that's true. But also, we don't normally speak a blessing like that over people, but we should, right? It's powerful. So,
Write it down, Bria, because I said it.
she said,
I'm just not knowing how to put it into words.
I would do that if someone had worked.
But it's not general culture.
No,
That's
It's-
not actually, but yeah, we as believers are trying to bring that into our culture because we see that as something that we should do, right? So we are learning from that. That's a good thing for us to do, to learn from that. Now that's a powerful. And notice they're repeating again and again. You left your family. You can't. What's going on? Just because they can't highlight, underline. So repetition tells us something's important. "May I continue to find favour in your eyes, my Lord," she said. "You have given me comfort and spoke kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servant girls." My Lord, yes, that's very common. So she obviously there's a class structure, and it's Boaz at the top, and his immediate family, his servants are there, and then there's probably the poor and the outcast and the widows, and then there's the Moabites. Like the Gentiles, Ruth is bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the class structure. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all.
Grains and wine and bread.
Yeah, the food. Come on, what did we say? We had blah 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 blah.
It's putting her above.
Bread, dip it in the wine vinegar. This is Jesus at the Last Supper, right? Come and eat with me. Coming to this service. What do you mean?
Like
Communing, yes. Yeah. So we at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here." So obviously he's called her away from the servants' quarters to the royal house, even though he's not king or anything. Okay. "Have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." We don't do bread, wine vinegar. We have bread. But that's understanding their food, what they eat. She sat down with the harvesters. He offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men. "Even if she gathers among the sheaves, don't embarrass her. Rather, pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to an ephah. She carried it back to town, and her mother, ephah, of course. What's an ephah?
It's a measure.
How big is it? How much is it?
I can't remember.
An ephah. Let's see if this Bible will tell us.
This is why we wrote it on the book.
An ephah.
How
Yeah.
did I said it first.
Probably about
I wrote it down
22 litres.
Like a basket.
3/5 of a bushel, which is 22 litres. That's a lot.
22 litres.
22 litres. That's like.
This whole thing.
I think you're getting sucked.
What?
He's
Okay.
just writing down everything like
What
that.
else? What else? Ephah. Yeah, obviously. The measurement. And this is
Wait.
a lot.
No, but how
I
are you going to
said it,
calculate
and then
this?
you wrote it.
Okay, and what didn't you write? None said. Threshing. What is threshing?
Yeah, like beating the. wheat and.
That's right. What are you trying to achieve?
Getting rid of the shells.
Getting rid of the shells and everything and just getting the actual grains right. So another thing that they do, we have no flavour. We just go to the shop and buy food, right? Totally different. But this is helping us to understand what it was actually like to live in ancient Israel. This is what you did all day. You worked all day just to get enough food to eat that night. Okay, where are we up to? Blah, 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 blah. She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you!" Exclamation mark. Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working. "The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz," she said. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added, "That man is our close relative. He is one of our kinsman redeemers." Then Ruth the Moabitess said, what is kinsman redeemer? What is it?
So it would be a close relative who would then take them in and fulfill the law of providing a son for.
Sort of, not really. So that's different. So your husband's brother has married you. The kinsman redeemer is all about financial security. So if you're poor and you've got no income, your relative, your closest relatives have the responsibility of buying you out of slavery, purchasing you, looking after you. You become their part of their household, so you join the working team of their household, and that way you'll have financial security. So they think that there's like a prescribed order of who's supposed to do it. So you're not on your own. You're actually, if you end up being a widow and an alien a widow, there's a prescribed order of who's supposed to take financial responsibility for you, and that's what the kinsmen's are all about. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Where are we up to? Yes. Kinsman redeemers. Then Ruth the Moabitess said, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until I finish harvesting all my grain.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with his girls, because in someone else's field you might have been harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the servant girls of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvest were finished. And she lived with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. One day her mother-in-law said to her, "My daughter, should I not try to find a home for you where you will be well provided for? Is not Boaz, with whose servant girls you have been a kinsman of ours?" Fine, that's right. Who organises marriages around here? Parents, right? Okay, this is something different that we don't get. Let's go back to that. Solve us a lot of problems, right? Oh my goodness. No, don't say no.
It tends to be my marriage was an arranged marriage by the Lord. So, yeah, I had a good.
That's different. That's
I
different.
have to agree.
I trust God.
Them too.
I don't trust men.
So
Including myself.
It's through a person though that she connected us together.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. Then we can talk about that. So there's a whole topic right there.
Yeah.
On marriage and around how it gets organised and who takes responsibility for it. Yeah.
But you weren't forced to marry.
It wasn't
Essentially, it was
It
your
wasn't
choice.
forced, but it's definitely been knowing that God put us together has helped through the hard times.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
Yes. Definitely. So there's great potential for benefit and great potential for abuse of that system. Okay. Is not Boaz, with whose servant girls you have been a kinsman of ours? Tonight he'll be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash and perfume yourself. Put on your best clothes.
No, we said it first.
What's with that? Don't we all do that?
We don't perfume ourselves.
Oh, we don't?
No,
Okay.
I mean, we might wear it. Or,
That's the same thing, right?
oh, is it?
Bro,
It's, they had it. It
Ah!
was a real.
how are you gonna tell who wins?
And it's a big
It's
deal.
like we're both writing like the same thing. Like
I did something different.
If you're at threshing floor, that's
You
fine.
think of the same thing at the same time.
Threshing floor is a good one.
No way.
Threshing floor, what does that mean? What's the threshing floor?
That was where they threshed.
That's where they do it all. That's like, but it's like almost like a community gathering place, right? Where all everyone's doing their work. And it's like more stuff happens at the threshing floor than just threshing. because that's where the community will gather together. Yes, okay. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do.
No!
What's she writing? Uncover feet and lie down. What is going on here? What's going on? What's going on?
Well, she's gonna be a doctor, I can tell you that.
Tell you.
Oh,
It's like- So what is happening? What is happening?
I could write all sentences.
She's inappropriately touching him.
Just making it clear that.
She's making a specific advance, that's right. And then it's all on him to do something about it, right? Okay? And it's also interesting what we don't get, how many of us sleep when we work, right? Right? They work, eat, sleep. No one went home during Christian time, right? They have this stuff. Let's just fly and fly out to another level. Okay.
I'm a stay-at-home mum, so.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, that's right. But
Yes.
just do all our work and
It's just
sleep.
because they've just finished doing a hard day.
Yes,
work,
yes,
and they're
yes.
probably drinking.
Yes, no, it was like the harvest time. Work hard, eat hard, drink hard, sleep hard, get up next day and do it again, right? That's obviously what's going on here. Dun, 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 dun. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law had told her to do.
Threshing floor.
Oh. Look at something, you can see her eye. Doing all your mother-in-law said, that is not culture. Okay, that's a good thing to put in. Regard?
I'm writing something different.
Oh, he's using a technical term, submission. Well done.
Still the same
It's
thing.
still the same.
No, it's different. It's different.
So
No!
authority.
It's different.
It's totally not the
It's so different.
It's exactly the same. Oh my
No,
goodness.
it's no. Come on.
It's just technical
Oh.
term for the something.
No,
Okay.
it was just something earlier in the story. When the guards were like, because when the guards like didn't touch her, or the men didn't touch her, they were submitting to her.
Whatever. That's not the point. Okay, here we go. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned and discovered a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I am your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer. What is that all about? Spread the garment, yes, grain pile. Well done.
I finished. No! No, that was mine.
So
Come
yeah,
on.
you can have
Come
it.
on.
Okay, so spread the garment, what does that mean? What are we talking about? What's garment?
It's like a covering, so it's
Meaning.
Protection and authority, that's right. Garment, protection, authority. So there's a significance to it that garments for us mean fashion to show off to other people, trying to get attention. I don't know what we wear clothes for, but back then, your place of standing, your authority, protection, all of those sort of things, all meant stuff. Okay, here we go.
I'm hungry.
Where are we up to? The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. This kindness is greater than that which you have showed earlier. Notice he chucked in that my daughter thing again. You have not run after the younger woman, whether rich or poor. And now you have not run after the younger men,
Wait,
whether rich or poor.
yeah.
Oh,
Hold on, what?
Right. I don't think there's anything about that. What do you think?
Wait, no.
Why did you put that up?
Why'd you put that up?
Okay, so that is a cultural, I mean, for us, we would be going for people that look good.
Okay, so what
Yeah, in the
yes,
world,
yes.
you don't necessarily go for an older guy unless, you just want to take his money and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But so she was being,
That's right. So what she's saying, she has, so apart from the fact that there's obviously there's a generation gap between Ruth and Boaz, so
But
she's crossing the generation gap when the expected thing would be to connect up with one of the young harvesters who's doing one of those. That should have been her.
But that's a thing that happens
That
today
still
a
happens
lot.
today. That happens
Yes,
today.
lot.
yes.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
It still happens.
Are we keeping that? No, come on now.
I think it's still, it's heavily
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't watch TV. Look at Married at First Sight.
Totally. Okay. So, okay, going after the old rich guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the rich guys in it.
Or
Yes.
even like a generation gap's what, like 10 years? How many years?
I reckon he's old enough to be your dad.
Yeah.
I reckon he's old enough to be your dad. Because he's his
Ah.
mother-in-law's relative, right? So he's old enough to be your dad.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
It happens a bit.
Well, he was a person of significance.
That's right, yes.
Just as most men who have a significant place. Like Donald Trump, come on, look at him.
Yes, yeah, fair
Like,
call.
I mean, if you
Fair
start
call.
looking at anybody in a place of significance, you have footballers.
Yeah.
Like they might be young, but key places. I think it's not so much even just generational. It's a significant a person of significance is what you're talking about.
It's
It's not-
significance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's.
And fashion accessory wife,
I
that's
don't
what
think
you're
it's
talking
any
about,
different
right?
today than it was back then.
Yeah, okay. But this is not a fashion accessory wife, like she's a mobile S. So she's the opposite of a fashion accessory wife. Okay. Where are we up to? Who are you? I'm your servant Ruth, bed according to God. The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than that which you have showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask. All my fellow kinsmen, townsmen know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true I am near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Alan's writing something down. I will do all that you ask.
That's pretty, I mean, you know, not all men do that.
No,
Men can
obviously
be
not
very,
all men do
very
that.
kind of like, you serve me,
Yeah, definitely. And so what I think even countercultural for the day, I don't know if it's a cultural window into understanding story. I don't know. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
But the way that he.
How you going, Cosmo? You having fun here? Obviously. All right.
Thumbs up.
Where are we up to?
But the way in that part that you just read, Derek, that he referred to someone else. So she'd made the move,
Yes.
which is obviously a move to let's get married.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, yep, sounds great, I love you, whatever, he's kind of.
There's a
they
procedure
treat
that has
her
to be followed.
like property to be like,
Yes.
I can't because there's someone else who might have more of a right.
That's right. There's a defined order of who has first claim,
Yeah.
and it's not him.
So it's not really about love, like.
It's not about romance. It's all about as I say, it's about rights, property, inheritance, and stuff like that. But yes. So how do I write that down for you, man?
Gloria said it though.
Gloria did say it. I fear
Gloria's on
for.
my team.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Gloria's on the team.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
well,
Okay.
I'm gonna concede.
Where are we up to?
Writing things.
Although it is true that I am near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good, let him redeem. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here till morning. So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, don't let it be known that a woman came to the threshing floor. Dun, 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 dun. What's the implication of what is going on? This is totally inappropriate. Why do you...
Yes! Oh, come on, I totally finished that first.
Why,
Come on!
Why did he say Saturday night?
Very
And then why did he say, don't tell anyone the woman came? I reckon he's creating scandal, right? Everyone's going to tell. Okay? Don't tell, and the woman, oh yeah, did you know that?
Yeah.
Scandal's creating, okay, you could have said, quickly go home, no one will know you've been here,
Yeah.
but he's staying there. So we're early in the morning, and it looks like she's sneaking off after they spent the night together. That's what it looks like is happening. Because it's, and so he's saying, don't tell anyone that she came to the everyone's going to tell.
So the other king.
The other guy's going to know
Be
here.
like, oh,
Yeah, but their hands off, yeah.
yours.
Yeah, that's right. I reckon he's setting up. Because he could have said, sneak, go home. Don't want anyone to know you go home in the middle of the night. But he didn't. Told her to stay night. Interesting. Interesting play, right? Ta-da. He also said, bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out. When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went back to town. Bring the shawl. Did we write right, shawl? Yes. Shawl. He said, bring the shawl. Yes. Okay, shawl is correct. And she used the shawl to carry her food. That's a cool thing, right? Carry her supply. I don't know how that works. But I guess. Big bundle. Here we go. Okay. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, How did it go, my daughter? She told her everything Boaz had done for her. And he added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along, what are we writing? The matter is settled today. What does that mean? Same day. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It didn't wait 10 years. Or
Yeah, in our culture, it's not
Everything
like,
goes from there.
yeah, it's a whole long game. And I totally knew you were only finished it first.
Town gate. Why did he go to the town gate? What's
Oh,
the
the first
significance?
time gate.
What's the significance of town gate?
That was where they used to deal with all their matters.
The town gate was where everything happened. That's the courthouse. It was the place where you did sign contracts and made deals. Everything happened. The business took place at the town gate. It's the meeting place. Everyone went in and out. Yes. Okay. Meanwhile, Boaz went to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer had mentioned came along, Boaz said, come over here, my friend, and sit down. So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said to them, sit here. And they did so. Then he said to the king,
I totally got that.
elders. Okay. Is there equivalent today of town elders?
I guess people council,
Local council, sort of, yes.
the law, the judges.
Judges and stuff, yes.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things were around about town elders type of level. They're the people that have a say of what goes on and stuff like that. Yeah, they're highly respectable leaders in the community. Okay. Then he said to the kinsman redeemer, Naomi, who has come from Moab, is selling a piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here, and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line. What's happening? What are we writing? Yeah, we talked about that. Next in line? Yeah, we've already talked about that. Okay. What I think is interesting is he's talking about selling land. He's not talking about Ruth and Naomi.
Said rights to me.
Rights to land, yes. Okay. So actually, what matters in this transaction is the property, is the land.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's just the add-on. Okay. I will redeem it, he said. Of course he does. Who doesn't want to get a new piece of land? So the idea is he can buy the land. That's Naomi's income supply is selling the land. That's her investment property that she's going to sell. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property.
Property, yeah.
Okay. How to acquire the widow? That's right. You acquire the widow. And the purpose of that is so that her husband's name doesn't die out. You must have a descendant. Her whole purpose is no one's name should die out. They should always have a descendant. That's the whole point of it. At this, the kinsman redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it. I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I'm out. I cannot do it, is what he said. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. Sandals. Obviously, there we go. Sandals.
Did you write saddles?
So,
This is hard.
the significance of sandals, do they pop up anywhere else in Scripture?
Sandals.
Sandals,
People take off their sandals.
Sandals.
holy ground. So what's the point? What's
I
the
missed
point?
the last. So did I missed the last two.
So, they take off their sandals to legalise a property transfer. Why are they taking off their sandals? What do you reckon is going on? What does it mean?
It's like a part of their possession swapping over so that you can.
Well,
It's
like
They don't give up
travel,
their sandals.
travel was by foot, right?
Yeah.
So the sandal is essentially then
Yeah.
their car. Like
Yes. Okay.
if they don't have good sandals, they're not going very
Yes.
far.
Yes.
Like in our society today.
Okay.
It's
My
about-
interpretation is it's all about honesty and integrity of the transaction.
I was saying
Okay.
I'm not going to run away.
I can't run off. right? I'm in for the long haul, right? I can't run off, okay? And we see that in when you take up a sandwich on holy ground. It's also about honour and respect.
Yeah.
I'm now a servant, okay? And you're the master because the servant's barefoot. The masters have good shoes on, right? So those sorts of things are going on in the thing. But remember, they called Jacob the deceiver because he was the heel grabber. Okay, and when you take him to sandal, you're throwing him the heels. So I'm not deceiving anybody. It's very clear. What's
True,
going
because
on.
you had the rap thing about women.
It's all comes together. Yeah, okay, right.
Okay.
Where are we up to? Okay. Then Boaz announced to the elders of all people, today you are witnesses. I have brought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion and Mahlon. I've also required Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. So his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are my witnesses. What have we written down? The name of the dead, you haven't talked about that already.
Oh.
We talked about
And also witnesses.
and witnesses, yes. We have witnesses now too, right? We do have witnesses. It's all good stuff. Then all the elders and all those at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home, like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. We've already talked about these things, remember? And may you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Why did they make that link? Just saying? Because same story, right? Second or third wife, Tamar, father, daughter-in-law, same whole concept, same. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. Then he went to her and the Lord enabled her to conceive and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he be famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth. In old age, yes, no, definitely. If you haven't got children and grandchildren, you're out. Okay. What else is important in here? Dun, 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 dun. Then Naomi took the child and laid him in her lap and cared for him. The woman living there said, Naomi has a son. And they named him Obed. Naomi cared for him. Oh yeah, we have grandparents doing that too, right?
Not all the time.
Okay, but also Naomi was a son.
Yeah.
It's
and care for-
counted as her son, right? Okay, it's all different. It's all way more significant.
And also in the blessing, the
Yeah.
contrast of her saying she's been better for you than
10 sons, yeah, like
10 sons. The
blasphemous,
comparison of
right?
Women and men.
Yes, that's highly big deal. Okay, then Naomi took the child, laid him in that care, and one said to him. No, they named him Obed, and he was the father of Jesse, the father of David. This then is the family line of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron, the father of Ram, the father of Amminadab, the father of Nashon, the father of Salmon, the father of Boaz, father of Obed, father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. Okay, anything else you need to know? What are you writing down? David. Oh, that's a good thing to write down. The whole point of this book is
It sort of writes it bigger, really.
And the genealogy. That was
genealogy. Genealogy is a big deal.
Write it down, write it down, write it down. No.
Apart from people that may be Vikings related to Adam and Eve, okay. Apart from us finding out that we're Viking ancestors related to Adam and Eve and blah blah, apart from that, no one cares about genealogies, right?
I have Viking.
Everyone's got Viking ancestors, right? Okay, so this genealogy thing is like a climax of the story because we're about to hit. We've just finished Judges. We're about to hit Kings, Samuel, and we're going to bounce into David as the great anointed, blah, blah, blah. And we've just found out where David came from, right? That's a significant part of the story, even though there's nothing to ask about. Genealogy at the end, who cares? But it matters because you ended up with David. And we know in Matthew's genealogy, okay, Ruth pops in, right? Moabitess, okay. The other interesting thing, I'm just going to check this, make sure it's right. Hold on. But I'm pretty sure Boaz is the son of Rahab.
Yeah, I think so.
Boaz is the son of Rahab. Surprise, surprise, Rahab the foreigner, the son of Rahab the foreigner welcomed the Moabitess foreigner. Okay, the dynamics going on, okay. He's also an outcast Gentile who, through the blessing of God, has become a leader in the town. And now he welcomes in another Gentile, a whole lot of things going on in the book that are very interesting as well. That's a dynamic that's creeping through the book that we might not have picked up on. The other important thing in this book is everyone knows you are a woman of noble character. He says about Ruth right in the middle of the book, right? Okay, now we need to understand Hebrew writings. The middle is the important part, that's the climax. The middle is often the middle. He says, everyone knows you're a woman of noble character. In the Hebrew Bible, the next book, the book of Ruth, comes right after the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs ends with a woman of noble character who can find, bounce into Ruth. This is a woman of noble character. So, book of Ruth serves as genealogy of David, who he came from, woman of the role model for every woman in Israel. You should be like Ruth. That's just that. These are the them things. This is the things that are in the book, and all the things that Ruth is doing. That's what you should be doing. Okay, because she's the model, as well as right in the middle of the whole thing, the whole welcoming of foreigners and Gentiles and providing for them, fulfilling the law. David's ancestry is all good. Okay, even though there's Gentile, it's all got the right character things in it that you should have, and you should all be like that. You should all do the same. That's the book of Ruth. That's enough for now. I think it's pretty good. But it was a great exercise just in fully immersing ourselves in the culture of ancient Israel and what they live like, what their life is like, and all that sort of thing, and some of the key points of the story. Moabitess, all the way through the story. Woman of noble character, all the way through the story. How Boaz is a great godly example compared to everyone else in the book of Judges who has failed. Right? In the day when Judges ruled, the leaders might have been a lost cause, but there was an upright citizen in Bethlehem. And at least there was one upright citizen in all of Israel, and he was living in Bethlehem, and he was David's. Okay, yes, so there's all this stuff about tribes and clans and families. That's how it all works. We talked all about that. Kinsman Redeemer, inclusion of godly character, the heritage of King David. What else is important? I've done all that. Jesus is obviously seen as the kinsman redeemer that purchases us. As we are the Ruths, we are the foreigners, outcasts from God, and we come to Him. He purchases us and provides us a place in the house of blessing. That's the metaphor that we can see in it for us as well. We're seeking refuge in the house of God through Boaz, the righteous one. Now, something for us to think about. What do we look like to the people around us? Do we look like the book of Judges, or do we look like the book of Ruth? This is our wrap-up challenge. Are we a book of Judges person? Chaos, civil war, cycle of in and out, cycles of serving God and crashing and turning away and that sort of thing. Sometimes our life could look like that. Sometimes our life should look like the book of Ruth, right? That's more of examples for us of what our daily life should look like, regardless of our great exploits. Our daily life foundation looking like the book of Ruth. Blessing people, welcoming people, hard work, diligence, submission, all of those things. Those are the things that we should be wanting to see in our life. And I have another challenge which came to me when I was just looking over the book of Ruth. And that was, who is your Ruth? Who is your Naomi? Who are you rescuing and bringing into the family? Who's the outcast and the alien, the person with no future that you are welcoming in, you are rescuing, you are providing for, you're giving them a place so that they're not an outcast and an alien. And there's a great call on us as a church, that's what we're supposed to do, on us as people, to those who are outcast and aliens, bring them in and make them a place where they can thrive and prosper and become part of a family of the kingdom of God and stuff like that. And it's not obviously for Bo, it's a big transition to take a Moabitess and a widow, bring them all into your household and all that sort of thing. It's a disruptive moment, but it's a thing that we should be embracing as a lifestyle thing. Finding those people that are outcasts, distant, no future, and giving them a place where they can thrive, a future, and that sort of thing. Great challenge for us to make that something that we set off as a goal, or something we should be doing as a lifestyle. Okay, let's take, what time is it? 10, 10? Let's take a 5-minute break, and 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll just have a start on Samuel and Kings and Chronicles and get into some of that. It'll take 10 minutes for break first.